All right, Ramiro, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Daniel. Thanks for having me today.
Welcome, and a big shout out to Andrew J. Howard that put us in touch together. I know you've been on his podcast or one of his spaces or both, talking about above phone and what you're trying to achieve. And it was him that put us in touch.
That's right. Daniel is a legend, and actually, he's a good friend of mine. We met in Mexico, and he's doing God's work down there in Mexico, bringing on Bitcoin adoption to the mom and pop shops. So, yeah, huge, big appreciation for him and getting us on here.
Well, excuse me. You said my name, but you meant Andrew. So I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll edit that. We'll edit that.
Yeah. Do you want to say that again?
Andrea, forgive me.
uh, we we can leave it in there. We all make mistakes. It's fine. Uh, but anyway, Samuel's here. What did you want to ask me? This has been a burning question of yours.
Should I have an iPhone?
Oh man, you switched it up on me. I thought it was going to be the what's your favorite thing about Bitcoin? Should you have an iPhone? Well, you know what, Samuel, I believe it's your freedom of choice, whatever you're gravitating towards. But I think you should be informed of what your iPhone does, and I think a lot of the things in the iPhone ecosystem are really unhealthy. The focus on social media and those addictive scrolling feeds, and also how it analyzes our behavior, and it does that just so it can tell what products it should try and sell you. So I think that's underhanded, and it definitely doesn't respect your freedom to exchange. And I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to Bitcoin. So I'll pose the question back at you. Would you prefer to get your apps from anywhere, including the developer, or would you rather just go through Apple?
Well, I've definitely heard that the government track your phones, or iPhone, and I'm not sure about Android. And I don't want that risk. So I want to maybe go with a safe phone.
Yeah. So where we're at the moment, Ramiro, is Samuel and Lauren. They don't have phones. They've
Mm.
got some of my old ones or my wife's old ones that they use every now and then, but they don't have
Yeah.
a specific phone for themselves. They don't have a SIM card, and they're what now 12 and a half, reaching 13 soon. I'm going to have to bite the bullet at one stage, and
Yeah.
I would rather be way more informed than I have
Mm.
been in the past because
Mhm.
since 2007, when the iPhone came out, I was just one of those dudes that wasn't an early adopter. But as soon as I saw everybody else having them and I saw the power of them, like, right, well, let's get on board here. And
Yeah.
gave all my identity up and all of that. So I don't want my 12-year-old twins to follow in
Mm.
the footsteps of the mistakes that I think I've
Mm.
made. And you have a company above phone that is trying to educate people about the best practices. And yeah, I
Totally.
mean, I hope that resonates as well with some of the listeners that have 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that are bugging them for the phone, because these things,
Mm.
they need to have them, but at what cost?
Right. And the costs are sometimes like hidden. You don't really know about them. So I mean, it's exciting that you're reaching that age. The phone is such an important tool. And you're right. You're very wise at your age that the government is silently listening, not to our phones, to our phone numbers, to our text messages. And I personally believe our right to privacy is like inherent to a strong country, to a strong world. And so there's phones out there now that you don't even have to sign in to use them. There's no centralized account or anything. So, you're not being labeled in the advertising system. There's not logs being sent from your contacts, or your calendar or anything like that you would find on a Google or an Apple phone. And the thing I think that bothers me the most is when people close an ecosystem, right? I tend to label these ecosystems as abusive software ecosystems because they act kind of like an abusive partner in a relationship where they're spying on everything that you're doing. And then when you try and go outside the box, like let's say you break Apple's terms of service, they can turn it off like on you like that. You know, you can have your iCloud set up to that, your Apple Pay, all of this stuff. You could have paid them money, as there have been instances in the past where people have been locked out of their Apple accounts, and you lose a lot. So I think it's super crucial to own your data, and we're going to get you hooked up with a phone, Samuel, and I think you're going to like it a lot.
Yeah.
There's one thing though. It doesn't play 3D games. You have 2D games, 3D games. It's I almost shouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
that's fine.
You use your Xbox for the game stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the phone, you don't need
like calling or like being in touch with friends.
There's
and having a Bitcoin wallet.
Bitcoin wallet. Check. You've got your choice of Bitcoin wallets. There's one more thing I have to say, just as a public service announcement of this, and if anyone else has kids at home that are about to get a phone. So there's been a lot of research of showing that kids who are around the presence of phone, or even people over years, 5 to 10 years, there's a risk of brain cancer if they have their phone really close to their heads. And it's these big phone companies being irresponsible. And there's a little notice if you read their safety insert, their instructions, it's saying you should hold it away from your head. So I just got to say that because I did this interview last week, and I've been researching. There's these glial tumors that are very aggressive brain cancer tumors that we're seeing a resurgence of because people hold them directly to their heads, and then also young people, teenagers are using their phones at night right here, like right next to their face. So there's a lot of problems around that. So it's like more than just being a privacy solution. This is about using technology healthfully. And so for that, I've got to recommend one of these kit things. It's an Ethernet adapter for your phone. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Doesn't matter, right? And it goes into your phone, and then you plug an Ethernet wire into it. And this is what we've got to do at home. This is an absolute shift that we must make because we don't know how these foreign electromagnetic frequencies are affecting. I mean, we do know there's a whole host of things that I could get into. But Samuel, that's my one piece of advice to you. Get yourself an Ethernet adapter. They're like $20, no big deal, and enjoy using your phone at home.
Thank you.
All right. Well, did you want to ask that favorite thing about Bitcoin question too? Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah, what's your favorite thing about Bitcoin?
My favorite thing about Bitcoin, oh man. I think I've always been a rebellious kid growing up, and I didn't really like being told how to spend my money and when I discovered Bitcoin, that was it. It was a shift in mindset, like, oh wow, like I can transact with anyone wherever they are, anywhere in the world using Bitcoin. And it felt completely private. It felt like I wasn't being tracked. I wasn't being accounted for. And I remember back in the day in 2012 where you could actually do closer to peer-to-peer exchanges. You could go to a bank and deposit money in a bank account without showing an ID and get Bitcoins to your wallet. And it changed my life because I was like, okay, this is going to be the future of business. And yeah, I think we're getting closer to that today. Although there are things that, I think we need to improve as a community. Yeah. So it's like the mindset shift. That's my favorite thing. People didn't realize like how important financial freedom was before Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, do you have, just to show Samuel, do you have a phone at hand that you recommend to parents for starting their kids on the right foot, getting them understanding what these things are doing and best practices around privacy policies?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, of course, I've got to recommend the phone we have first and foremost. So that's called Above Phone, and you can learn about it at learn.abovephone.com. I'll actually bring that on the screen later. But it essentially goes through, I have webinars on that site, which teach you everything that the phone does. It's like you can download videos off of YouTube and listen to them without ads. There's different app stores that you can use that every line of code on there is completely open source and transparent. So you actually have an idea of what it's doing. And I would recommend that parents go for something that is completely open source based. Why? Because there's not a company that it's attached to. Even if that company, runs out of money, if something falls apart, you can still have your phone. You want to go for a community developed nonprofit open source project. And so above phone, we use nonprofit projects as part of our offering. And there's some work that needs to be done. You still need to decide how you're going to communicate, what apps you're going to get. So we complete that gap and give you a full solution. So if you're interested in that, check out abovephone.com. But by all means, I don't try and, force people to our product. You can do this at home on your own. And so a few of the de-Googled, they call it de-Googled operating systems that we feature is Graphene OS. That one's definitely the industry leader. And you can install that on your own phone if you have a compatible phone. So if you're feeling techie, I encourage you to do that. If you kind of just want it working out of the box and you want a whole bunch of other goodies and bonuses, then check out Above Phone.
All right. And what does that retail for those that are listening?
They go anywhere from $500 to over $1,000, depending on the phone.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, Samuel. Do you want to say goodbye, and then I'll carry on with the interview? Go on. All right, good.
Can we buy the phone with Bitcoin?
Yes, you can. Thank you for saying that. Yes, ever since day one, we set up our bank, and then we also set up our Bitcoin payment server. So you can pay with your phone in Bitcoin. And should I even mention the other coins? You used to be able to pay in Monero. I'll just throw that in there if anyone likes Monero. So yes, yeah, check that out. Seamless.
And I just thought of another question. Is this particular phone, can you use an eSIM on it?
Yeah, good question. You can use an eSIM on it. There's one drawback though, right? So this phone doesn't have any Google code on it by default. It doesn't have any Google services. And the eSIM management service, that is a Google service, and no one has made a compatible open source service to do that yet. So what you do is you enable Google services for a second, you turn on the eSIM, and then you turn off Google services. You can even turn it off completely. And if you ever need to manage the eSIM, you have to turn it on again. But I think it's a pretty, I think it's an okay adaptation. The other thing I would just recommend is physical SIMs for the most part. I'm not a big believer on eSIMs just in general right now. Maybe that'll change, but yeah, you have that flexibility. So I'm guessing you use one for like travel, eSIM for travel or something like that.
Well, the only reason I ask is because of Silent Link. They've been on my show before, and I cannot use their service on my current phone, which has 2 SIM cards, but I'm not able to use an eSIM. And they are
really.
Do you know the guys, Silent Link?
I'm aware of their project. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. So I'm interested in using those guys because they're legit Bitcoiners, and I want to be able to buy my plans through them with they mask your number, and you could be anywhere in the world, and it's not following you, and you can pay via the Lightning Network. So the phone would be able to implement one of them.
Yes.
And use that.
Yes, absolutely. I know they promote phones, and they promote phones, and it does work on these de-Googled phones. One thing I will mention, because I have to throw our hat in the ring, is we also have our own SIM card. It's a physical SIM card. And similarly, you can use Bitcoin or Monero to get it. And it's also private because it's only data. It doesn't have a phone number it doesn't have a phone number attached to it. And that's nice because whenever we make a phone call or text over the internet, the nearest cell tower knows that that call was made in the area, right? So what this does is it sends it over the internet. It's used in combination with the internet phone number that we have. That's only $5 a month in Bitcoin. And but when you use that, it goes all the way over the internet to the origin point And that's where it bridges out from the internet to the cell network. And so all of your calls and texts originate from that one place, meaning that people watching the cell network have no idea where you're actually calling and texting from. So that project is called JMP, and we can get into it. Yeah.
All right. Definitely, we will get into it. All right, Samuel. Yeah. Okay. See you later, man.
Hey, great to meet you, Samuel. Cheers.
All right. So before we get into the phone and everything else, let's find out a little bit more about yourself, your backstory, your pre-above phone life, your pre-Bitcoin life, the journey to finding Bitcoin. That's always a really interesting topic, which resonates with a lot of Bitcoiners out there that are listening to this show. So where did it come from, man? What were you doing before all of this craziness?
Yeah. I like that I was using Bitcoin in my past life too, but more, I didn't understand like the value of it, the importance of it. And that probably just because I was immature. Like I spent all of it, and I had bought a good amount, I'm sure we all did. And so my past life, I was a software engineer. I was building web apps and mobile apps. I've worked for tiny, 3 to 7 people companies to multi-billion-dollar huge firms, and as a consultant. And it didn't take me long to feel like, one, I wasn't moving fast enough, and two, that I didn't think there was anything special about the software that we were building. I didn't think we were helping humanity, maybe in very small, limited ways, but I was like, man, we can just do so much more than this. And then as things began to heat up and we began to see these attacks on our basic freedoms, right? The freedom to travel, the freedom to have privacy, the freedom of free speech. When I saw that those were coming under attack, I knew I had to do something about it. So I dropped my corporate career. I was getting very close to working for a big tech company at the time, and completely did a 180 and decided to start my own company. And luckily, I was working with a social movement called the Freedom Cell Network, which is founded by my friend Derek Bros and John Bush. And so this is a decentralized mutual aid network. It's a lot like Bitcoin because it's a group of people that are looking to work with each other based on whatever principles they want, whether that's growing their own food or homeschooling their kids. And anyone anywhere can make a freedom cell. And we have one central site that you can have your freedom cell on. But anyways, so I started helping them out, and I was donated some Bitcoin after quitting my job. Like I needed something to keep me going. So I have Bitcoin to thank for making the first year manageable so I could pay my bills. And from there, it just blew up because, that was in 2019. COVID-19 84 happened the next year. And so our group went from 2,000 people to almost 30,000 people. And we saw this massive shift in consciousness. And from then on, I knew kind of my destiny was set. Building software that protected people's rights, inherent rights.
Wow, man, 2,000 to 30,000.
Yeah, and all in 1 year. So like people are paying attention to this. People are tired of trusting politicians because it's like before, and I'm like very US centric, so I'll try to keep it more global. But these partisan politics, they're all a sham. You're voting for a different person every 4 years, but nothing ever changes. The war never stops. Prices never stop going up. So I think 2020 was when we realized this is going too far. I'm not going to stay in my home. I'm going to have control of my body. And the people who all realize that have been banding together since then. So the Freedom Cell Network, if you guys are interested in that, check that out, freedomcells.org. It's free for anyone to join. We have groups on Telegram as well. You can go onto this website anywhere you are in the world. You can find a Freedom Cell or you can find people next to you. So I highly recommend you check that out. And then we launched a conference, a solutions-focused conference too, because we're not we're not the group to be. We already know the problems. What are the solutions? So we launched a conference called The Greater Reset. I can check that at thegreaterreset.org. And that was a 5-day solutions focused conference. We've done 4 of them now, and our 5th one is going to be on January 2024. So all of the videos have been published for free on that. And yeah.
Where's the one in January going to be?
It's going to be in Mexico, actually, in Morelia, Mexico, which is in the growing zone. It's a really beautiful part of Mexico. We had around 400 people come out last time. So people from all over the world too. Like a lot of people escaped their old countries to join us at the event.
COVID. How it's backfiring. I love it. It's so great to hear that. Obviously, lots of people were sucked into the narrative and, hung onto the trouser leg and govern me harder, daddy. But my goodness, did it wake a lot of people up.
Exactly, right. And this is something, it's the best gift they could have given us, is they overplayed our hand. And now we know we can't rely on them. And I think bringing it back to Bitcoiners, I think Bitcoiners need to understand too, okay, you've got the financial freedom thing figured out, but there's so much more than that. Do you feel like you have food freedom? Do you feel like you have health freedom? Because if you don't focus on those areas too, those are crucial inputs to any living thing. And where was I going with this? So that's another thing about
So I can layer on top of that point, because I do a lot of work as well with the educating people about their choices around education and homeschooling being a thing. And homeschool is just the wrong word because people just envisage doing school at home, and but basically opting out of the education system is so important. Otherwise, we just will not move forward. If we just keep feeding our hearts and souls of our kids to this beast, to this machine, then we're never gonna. We have to just stop. That is a rotten institution. This is all about indoctrination. This is all about social science and societal engineering. It's eugenics on crack. It has to freaking end. And if we don't end it, that's fine. We can have the Bitcoin, we can have food safety, and we can have health safety. But if we do not release the next generation of kids from the indoctrination process, they're going to just fall into the trap. So you're
100% right.
I agree with what you're saying as well. And Bitcoiners do love going down these little rabbit holes and, how do I opt out of the health system, like, and allopathic drugs and what's homeopathy and where did this come from and what's niacin? I've got a lot of people now in the niacin rabbit hole, which is incredible kind of learning journey in itself. And finding these, so it's nice to know about Freedom Cell and the Greater Reset because Free Cities Foundation, they also do a conference. They have Liberty in Our Lifetime in October in Prague, and it's all about parallel structures. So bringing Bitcoiners to meet these people, and vice versa, right? A lot of these people still need orange pilling. They've done the food, the health, and whatever else, but they haven't realized the money. It's like, guys, the money's broken. We can fit in here with this educational piece. We've got the money, but where do I now go live? Where's it best to grow my food? Where's it best to rear my cattle? Where is it best to educate my kids? Self-directed education platforms and all of this kind of stuff.
It's holistic, right?
Yeah.
Everything is connected. And I loved what you said about the children, because you're totally right. They are, unfortunately, their indoctrination is very effective nowadays. And, you can kind of look at statistics and things like gender ideology and even, political leanings to see how pervasive it is. And we do need to take back ownership of our own education, right? They've managed to separate us. And here's another reason why Bitcoin is great, because it's given people the freedom of time to stay at home, right? How great is it being a digital nomad and having your kids come up to you in your office? Like that's wonderful. And so, it's like not just one thing. We need to do all of these things. So I love that. I don't know if we're not even 15 minutes in. Look at this. We're building a whole new life. You hear that, Bitcoiners? If you haven't had kids, just start with that. Figure your own stuff out, then have kids.
And then never send them to the indoctrination camps, the gulags.
Amen to that.
All right. So above phone. Let's get into it. What can one expect when they buy one of these devices?
Cool. Let me start it off with a story too. Just how we figured this thing out. So when we were working for the Freedom Cell Network, we realized a few things. We had that first really good year, and then we started noticing different things. We had networks of spammers targeting our site and targeting our Telegram. They were trying to rope people into crypto scams. They were impersonate myself or Derek or John and try and rope people in, which is very commonplace now. The other thing that happened was that Google banned us off of search engines. And the way they did it was very insidious. I don't think, I can't directly point to Google, but, Google was the one who ultimately banned us. But someone would come in, make a post on our site for watch this free movie online, and then issue a DMCA takedown, and then delete the post before I even had a chance to come in and look at it. So I realized, okay, something fishy is going on here. I want to have the least amount of interaction with big tech as possible, because we're talking about all these strong ideas, and we're exiting and building these new systems, but are we going to use the same technology to do it over and over? I didn't think so. So I, with a team, we started figuring out, all right, how can we replace your communications? How can we replace your phone? How can we replace all of the things we rely on the phone? And in 6 months, we had the first working version of the above phone. And now that's graduated today, we sell the above phone. We also sell the above suite, which is a collection of privacy services. It's got a VPN, private email, private calendar, encrypted chat, voice calls, video conferencing, like this Zoom. And I know I'm forgetting something, a search engine. So all of that we package together with the phones, right? That's completing the layer. And so our goal is these big tech platforms, like these maps and everything, we want to make all of it obsolete. We want to make it crowdsourced. We want to make it so you can own your data. We want to make it so you can't be cut off from using any of these services. Because, Apple and Google did get a lot of stuff right. They did. Google Maps is changed the world, but it doesn't mean we have to stick with it as they continue to treat people unfairly and become more corporatist. So that is the mission behind Above Phone. Right now, you can go to our site. We'll send you an Above Phone wherever you are in the world. You get this phone. There's nothing you have to sign into if you don't want to. There's no advertising because there's no central analytics or advertising services on it. You can still download all of the apps that you want. I have a friend in India. His name's Rahul. He created Aurora Store, which is a anonymous wrapper over Google Play Store. So you're proxying your app's download requests. So you can see all the apps in the Google Play Store, and you can still download them without signing into Google. So that's a huge pillar of what this is. And you can also audit the amount of trackers that are on an app using the store. You can use the Exodus Privacy Project, and you'll get to see the list of trackers and companies that are on your traditional apps, and that'll help you make an informed choice of, hey, this news app has 12 trackers. Maybe I should stop using it, So it's partly education, it's partly the free and open source apps, it's partly the open source operating system. It's all of that together which really transforms your phone experience. So if you guys haven't tried this out, really check it out. Again, if you want to learn more about it, go to learn.abovephone.com, and the main website is abovephone.com.
And what about the biggest pushback I think anybody in your space, in your business, will probably come up against is, well, I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not doing anything illegal. Yeah. So, shrug of the shoulders. What are you going to do? Right. That's people's general kind of default mindset.
Yeah. I was recently in the UK, and I had a gentleman come up and say that afterwards. And, the UK is in a way worse surveillance state than America. and other countries for that matter. And I think the question becomes, it's not that what you were trying to hide, it's whether you are willing to stand against injustice when there are a few companies and governments peering their nose into everyone else's business. Are you willing to stand up against that? Because that is wrong. I believe that is wrong. And are you willing to stand up for your neighbor, for your community, when their privacy gets invaded? It's not that you have anything to hide or that you're a criminal. It's that this is a massive injustice. And in fact, the people who are committing it are criminal. They have something to hide. Are you willing to call them out on it? And I mean, just think about it this way. There's 7 billion, there's more than 7 billion phones on Earth. There's almost one phone for every person. 99% of those phones use the same 2 operating systems, Google and or Apple. Now, think about that. And, there's been analysis done on these phones and how often they connect back. On average, they connect back every 5 minutes. They send a request back to Google servers or to Apple servers, depending on which operating system. So they have a real-time movement of almost everyone on the planet. How powerful is that? That's nuts, And the way this could change your life is if you get unfairly caught up in a geofence warrant, right? That's Google's geolocation warrant system. It's called Sensor Vault, and you can be innocently rounded up in that if your phone turns up there. And there's a whole bunch of other things. So it's like you've got to be willing to stand up for injustice, even if you don't have anything to hide. If you don't exercise your rights, you lose them.
So they would have known exactly who was at the Freedom Truckers convoy thing just by virtue of you had your phone in your pocket. So they know where you are at all times if they want to know. If they geo-fence that area, they're going to know exactly who's there and at what time and when they came or when they left.
The hard part about it is there's so many multiple layers. But yes, one of the easiest layers for them, right, is Google. And so on Google phones, they have traditional Google phones, Android phones. They have Google services, which is constantly running in the background, which if you have your location on, it'll send your location. On Apple phones, you don't have Google services, but you do have Google Maps. And every time you use Google Maps and you give it access to that, you're also on Sensor Vault, even though you're not on a Google phone. Apple is much more tight-lipped about its system, but it absolutely has the capability to do the exact same thing. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did. And that's just one way to find people's location. So yes, any major protests, if you bring your phone with you, and maybe you don't have a de-Googled phone that you can turn off the location on that way. Or if you haven't turned your phone off, yes, they can ping you through the cell towers or the location service. So you also need to protect yourself when you're going around and you're doing activism. And so, this is just another way for you to have digital self-defense.
Reminds me of the scene in Batman where they have the power to track everybody's phones, right? I mean, this happens, right?
Is that the one where it's like, what's his name? Dang it, I forgot the actor's name.
Christian Bale.
He's
or Morgan Freeman.
Christian Bale. He's awesome, but it's like the scene where he turns on like the tracking thing, and he's like, "This is too big of an injustice," and so there's like blue pinging everywhere, and he's able to see the entire city. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, it's Morgan Freeman. Yeah, was playing that.
Morgan Freeman, thank you.
And he questioned this is crazy. We can't have this. Whereas we already have it, and we have had it for goodness knows how many years.
Truth is stranger than fiction. I will say there's a massive pipeline of data collection. Okay, there is a massive pipeline of data collection, and there's so many ways for them to get access. But I think there is also a problem with the privacy community. I call it privacy live action role playing. They kind of get off on all of the different ways people can be spied on, whether it's using a laser on a window to see the vibrations in the window to listen to conversations in that room, or the back doors and processors and all that. And it's like, guys, okay, I get it that they probably are doing this stuff, but think about that pipeline of data from all of these people. There's no way on earth that they can enforce anything, gain insights and enforce it on all of these people that, all in one, some way or another are not abiding by the laws. It's impossible to abide by laws 100% of the time, right? So they have an immense challenge ahead of them. They're not able to control all of these people. There's no way right now anyways. So that's why, eugenics kind of does tie into this. And that's why I say don't live in fear, defend yourself, but don't be scared about this. Just focus that much harder on building systems and, using privacy when you can, when it's important.
Now, this EMF stuff that you brought up is a very dark rabbit hole, man. I've been down it. I've had dinner with a Bitcoiner that has been down it further than anyone I know. And he brought along with him a little meter to read the EMF that's coming out of the phones. And it was shocking, truly shocking, the readings that were coming off, and each phone different as well. Which, again, why is that? But the thing he found most worrying, and he lent it to me, and he said, go and try it on your laptops. And so I did. And an Apple laptop gives off a much lower reading than perhaps like a Microsoft tablet, which was just through the roof. And, a Motorola phone would be slightly different. But he had been tracking this for a little while, and he still had the same machinery and hardware that he'd been using. He's like, but it's doubled, Dan, from the same machine. So what or how is that possible? It's not the meter. It's the same meter. It's the same machine, but the EMF, the electromagnetic field frequencies, were almost doubled.
Well, I think, there's a lot of variables when it comes to EMF and the radios that generate EMF. So, I mean, there's questions that we can ask, and it's definitely a huge problem, but it, maybe he has a Bitcoin node running on his computer, or a Monero node, and constant, more activity. Maybe he's on some chat programs. That's the first thing I would point to. And, taking it further down the rabbit hole, then you might say, oh, there was a firmware update for the radio and it made it even more powerful, right? Stuff like that. And I just say that there's not much you can do about the firmwares or about these radios that are, that we have in our electronics. You can just put things on airplane mode and plug them in. And we've tested that with EMF meters. We've definitely tested that with the above phone and this Ethernet adapter that I was talking about earlier. And we've seen that when you put this phone on airplane mode, it's generating negligible EMFs, like zero EMFs, like indistinguishable from its environment. And for the laptop as well, I haven't tested it with laptops, but, can make a pretty good assumption that laptops behave the same way. Of course, you should test it yourself, but that's all we can really do. And when we're out and about, you got to take, and you got to, it's very important to have distance between yourself and whatever machine you're using. Laptops, we should change the name. I'm thinking of a different name for laptops because that's irresponsible to say, put them on your lap, right? I don't know, tabletops. Something, right? So, I mean, what your friend's finding out is it's scary. What do you think? Have you shifted your, the way you use technology in your household?
Yeah, I try and right at the moment, my phone is over there. In fact, it should be on airplane mode because I'm recording, and that's where it should be. But it's not. So let me. You
hear that, guys? If you're listening right now, put your phone on airplane mode. You should be on airplane mode when you're listening to the Once Bitten podcast. Okay, just full attention.
So, for my dumb understanding, if your phone is on airplane mode, but then you've got one of your Ethernet adapters. And I've got that plugged into my phone, and then I'm drawing Ethernet straight from the router. That basically means I've turned Wi-Fi capability off of my phone, and I'm now just surfing or using my phone as it is directly plugged into it, which would be a better use of it anyway because it'd be much quicker.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot quicker. It's a lot quicker. It's funny because it just turns into a landline. And, I don't have my phone plugged in all the time, but when I'm somewhere stationary, at my desk or even in my bed. Got to have it on. And it is very dangerous to have it that close to you for extended periods of time. So I just had on an EMF expert the other day on my podcast. His name is Bill Cadwallader. And so there's three things, right? 3Ds: duration, distance, and I think the last one is power, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah, I mean, it's like, if are you next to a cell tower, are you next to a cell phone? And our cell phones are little mini cell towers. They are very, very powerful. It's surprising, and they're continuing to make them more powerful and powerful. So if that's at least one thing we can do is keep it wired at home, that could be something that saves you from cancer, like literally. And we were talking about a bunch of really crazy examples. We talked about young men that needed a hip replacement because they had kept their phone in the same pocket for years on end. We had talked about a gentleman who had a big tumor on his abdominal because he would sit like this with his tablet. And we talked about a 19-year-old girl who had a tumor on her face because she would always talk on the phone like this, right? It doesn't take that long to happen. It takes 5 years. And so, yeah, you could save a life. This conversation could save a life. So I'm always trying to be really vocal about this.
I'll probably have to get Bill on as well so we can share the message as far and as wide as we can. What
country are you in?
In France at the moment.
In France? Okay, I'll see if I can get some Ethernet adapters out to you along with your phone. Hopefully we get you guys set up.
Okay, cool. And so there's a few other things here. The damn earphones, man, that all the kids are wearing, these Apple iPods. This has to be bad.
Oh, it's bad, man. It's bad. It's like the fascination with wireless technology is it's an inversion, right? And it's just the people developing this stuff, they think they're being smart and savvy and sophisticated, but no, it's super damaging to our health. The ear pods too, which I think the one fact everyone likes to share about that is that it's like a point-to-point system. So one ear pod will be responsible for channeling the music to the other ear pods that goes directly to your brain. And you can measure the EMF on that. I used to think that Bluetooth, that's like a lesser standard of radio connectivity, right? It's not going to be as powerful. No, it's pretty powerful. It goes, it can go from 300 to over 1,000 microwatts per meter squared. So that's powerful, right? Under 100 is what we should aim to be. Those are the standards from the Building Biology Institute. Like that's an okay level. And then actually below 10 is a clean level. So yeah, and exactly having it like right next to your brain like that's super, super scary. Like I feel bad for people who are wearing those. And sometimes it feels rude to say anything. I just don't say anything for the most part. But if it's a friend, I'll say something.
These kids are addicted to them, man. They think they're the coolest freaking things. They won't have anything else. Yeah. They look at me like I'm a boomer because I've got wired earphones. It's so bad. So
what, man? It is obviously bad, isn't it? And it's like, I think we got to get better at propaganda as people who care about these things. I say it's like they managed to get people to stop smoking cigarettes. How did they do it? Through like graphic shock and awe. It's like now the industry doesn't care about this, but this is something I've thought about is what if we have a picture of like, EMF can cause cancer, and then we have a picture of like a brain tumor and someone using a phone. Shock value could be one way to do this, but the other thing is we need to make these like wired solutions, and even the boomer earphones you're talking about, we could make those cooler a little bit. With some gold chains on there or something. Right.
Yeah, bling them up. Well, Bitcoiners are very inventive. We need some Bitcoin. Yeah. Bitcoin Beats would be a good company name. So
you feel like I was going to ask you, sorry, I apologize. Do you feel like there's any other one else in the Bitcoin space that is paying attention to the EMF issue?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. There's a handful that I know personally. And I think it's not been talked about too much on other pods yet, but I think it's going to be one of those things that, keeps coming up. And I will follow up with you after, and I'll get Bill's details and invite him on the show as well, so we can get a real good educational piece out there. The last thing I want to ask about is, what about those of us that are using Bluetooth in our cars? Is this just as bad, or is that okay because you're not in contact with it?
Yeah. So if you think about it, when you're using a phone in your car, there's like multiple sources, right? So one is from the cell tower to your phone, then your phone to the cell tower. So that will be bouncing around in the car. And also there is the Bluetooth connection. So it's your phone emitting Bluetooth going to the stereo and back to the phone. If you're in pretty close proximity to that, if it can't at all be helped, just go for wired. And also they're doing this on purpose with phones, even these above phones, because they're based on Google hardware, but they're taking away things like headphone jacks, making it harder for you to plug your phone into your car. But you can get adapters, and I recommend you get an adapter, you get an aux cord. When I was buying a head unit or radio for my old truck, I had to basically buy my own radio online that had no Bluetooth on it, because that's just something I wanted. And then I had to take it into them to go get it installed. So you have to go out of your way to get this stuff now, which is really, it's frustrating. I think you should do it though.
Yeah, think of you, there's 4 or 5 of you in a car and you've all got your freaking thing on, and they're all communicating with the cell towers. They're all communicating with the Bluetooth at the same time. And you're all just sitting in amongst it.
You're sitting in the soup of it. And, so I will share this. So there's, if you look at the Bio Initiative 2012, guys, this isn't like some, quack, like fringe science thing that we're just starting to talk about. There have been thousands and thousands of studies done on the health effects of EMF, not just on humans, but on plants, microorganisms, animals. They've grown cancer in rats. And so if you look at the Bio Initiative, it's a group of scientists that have collected and summarized all these studies and linked to these studies. And you can go see it. They have these things called color charts where it talks about all of the different effects. Like it could be reproductive effects. EMF causes sperm motility to decrease. So sperm can't swim and then becomes less virile. And it also causes depression, fatigue, like all of these anxiety, all of these things that we're just blaming as symptoms of the modern age could be coming from the soup of EMF that we're all in. So,
and for those people that are now thinking, holy shit, I've got to unplug all of my Wi-Fi routers because I've got those extenders all around the house. Is it just a case of getting reams and reams of the Ethernet cable and just running that all over the place?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And I honestly I have it's very messy right now. There's wires laying around mile ways. I need to get professionally wired, but I'd love to do a video on how to properly wire through us. That's what we got to do. If you feel like maybe you feel like this isn't that big of a deal, and honestly, more power, that's your freedom to think that. But if you are concerned about this, go wired and see how you feel. And use a meter too. You actually do need to use a meter. Sometimes you'll fix phones in your house. Got some stuff outside. Sometimes you'll fix your exposure inside the office, but you don't realize, there's actually a cell tower, less than 2,000 feet away, or something like that. And so you do need to get a meter to get the baseline and watch it drop down. There's also other forms of EMF too, like dirty electricity that could just be coming from the wiring of your house if it's done badly. So I'll make sure to connect you with Bill, who can do a much better job than me at talking about all this. But
yeah, absolutely. And here in France, they had these things put in, they called Linky, and they're these electrical, the electric meters that are constantly pulsing, looking out for your fridge at the Internet of Things and all of this kind of stuff.
Wait, what do they do? Are they tracking usage or something?
Yeah, I mean, yes, basically they're tracking electricity usage. This is how they sell it to you. It's smart meter, and
so if they sell it to you like it's going to save you money,
of course, like anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I am pretty sure they're pumping out EMFs into the home.
They
the whole time.
definitely are. Right. If they're not connected to anything, they probably have their own little cellular modem in there. And so, yeah, that's the smart meter. Smart meters, like legally in a lot of states here in America, you can't get your smart meters removed. You can't go back to analog. So, I mean,
That's
in
crazy.
France, I'm trying to get it removed. Like, I wonder what the process is. I'm really curious.
Huh.
There's
Right.
my friend Josh Del Sol. He did because his movement is called Take Back Your Power, and he has a big effort on getting smart meters removed and actually getting some of the laws repealed. So I think his site would be, it's takebackyourpower.net. And I never really thought about it in other countries, but I think that's worth looking into.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Dumb question about the above phone, and so people tell me all the time, "Oh, I de-googled my phone." I'm like, "Okay, brilliant. How did you do that?" Blah blah blah. Oh, right. I bought a Pixel made by Google.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh? Right. So for me, I can't. What's going on there? Why is a Google phone the best thing to use to de-Google yourself?
Yeah, I mean it best in certain ways. Best in terms of Android support, right? Google made the Android operating system. Their phones have the best support for alternative operating systems more than other phones. So that just means like all of the different components on the phone are working properly. And that's why the different developers of alternative operating systems actually picked Google phones. So they picked these phones because of a few different reasons. One, there are hardware features that provide for improved security. There's something called the isolated baseband, which just means if someone was able to attack your phone, using a cellular connection, that it would be separated from the memory of your phone. So they would have a hard time reading the memory of your phone. So that is a big security feature. There's also the secure element, hardware-based encryption keys that make it very hard for someone to break into your phone. So Graphene OS is security obsessed, right? So they see these features, they see the device, they see the long security updates from Google themselves, which has to come from the vendor. These firmware updates, they can't be. It's not really feasible for the open source community to develop these firmware updates. So they have to choose a vendor that's going to provide them security updates for a long period of time in the future. So, of course, these Google Pixels were chosen for all of those reasons and more. Yeah. Now, to be fair, and I totally understand the perspective of, oh, well, I don't want any Google on my device whatsoever. Well, there are other phones. There's like a OnePlus, which are Chinese phones, and you can use those with Divest OS. Right. And there's different operating systems coming out right now too. There's I think Libre Mobile OS, which works for a larger selection of phones. Now, just note this. Now, if you want the best Google experience out of the box, I really think you should go the route that an above phone would take, which is going for a Google Pixel. Like you're just going to have less problems. Here's one of the main reasons: you can run Google services on it, right? If you so choose, it's your freedom of choice to do so, but you can do it. So you could have your cake and you eat it too, right? That's what you can do with one of these Google phones.
All right. Is there anything we didn't touch on? I feel as though we've been all over the map here, but can you do a screen share for those watching on YouTube to give us like what one of these phones would look like and the services and the flow?
Yeah, let me get that set up. Yeah, so I mean, with these phones, there's so much that we didn't get to touch into, but it's all right. I like flowing with it. But
well, let's go wherever you want to go.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, the main thing I want to say is these phones are here. Like these phones are ready to provide you an experience that is better than your current phone. I mean, guys, it's a phone without ads where you can still use all of the apps you want. It's a phone where you have alternatives to all the apps you want. Okay, so I think I brought my phone up on screen. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So here's an example. Like this is what we do at Above Phone. So this is your de-Googled operating system, but it's already pre-configured with everything you would possibly want. You've got your email set up, right? This is an app called K9 Mail. And so you have your email set up with Above Privacy Suite, which I mentioned earlier. It's your suite of software services. You can get an email account, private email account. So that's at above.im. So I'm just showing you this. You could have more, you could have other emails on here. You could have your Yahoo email on here. You could have your Gmail email on here. God forbid you put that one on here, but you could have it if you wanted to. And so, I'm just showing you that the experience is like what you would expect from a normal phone. And then you can do things that you wouldn't normally expect. Like for instance, with here, I'm not connected to the internet. Let's see if I can get anything to show. There we go. All right. I got to be connected to the internet. So I'm gonna show you that one thing. Look, I'll show you that you can download a video straight from YouTube. You can download the video from your phone. And then you can own your videos. And then more than that, you can play it in the background. You can start playing it in a pop-up. Now, if you know the official YouTube app, if you play some music, you can't lock your phone. It actually doesn't let you. So this is already better than the official YouTube app. You don't have to pay $4 a month for that feature, or how much ever they're charging for it nowadays, right? So this is not just more private tech. This is better than big tech. All of these different apps and developers that make this ecosystem so beautiful. And then there's stuff like there's alternatives to Twitter, Knitter down here, and there's ways to listen to your favorite podcasts. I've got a few fun podcasts listed on here. And then of course there's stuff like Nostr, which I'm sure you know about. I just made my Nostr account today. I'll send my pub key to you so you can share that if you'd like. And then there's also ways to replace your reliance on Google Maps. Here you've got 3 different alternatives to maps. You've got Osmond Plus and Organic Maps, both of which run on top of OpenStreetMaps. OpenStreetMaps is really special because it allows people to crowdsource points of interest anywhere on Earth. And this is one thing I appreciate about Europe, France, and the UK, just in general. They have taken this ethos and ran with it. So when you use these maps in Europe, you can actually search things like, oh, I want to find a phone shop near me. It'll pull up a near phone shop. That's awesome. Here in the States, people haven't done the legwork of crowdsourcing this information yet. So you have to find things. You have to go online, search for an address, and type it in. But I do want to show you that. Let's see if I can get a demo to play. Yeah. No, I probably can't, but it's exactly like a map that you would expect.
Yeah.
So this is in downtown St. Louis, but it'll navigate you wherever you want to go. So, I mean, I'll pause right there. When it comes to, I'll make this personalized to you, Daniel, when there's something you need to do on your phone, what would be the 3 most important things you needed to do?
Oh, shit post on Twitter. Number 1.
Yeah. Gotta have that.
You gotta have that because, well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the Bitcoiners, like you said, are moving across to Nostr. But then, I'm constantly getting messaged Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp. I know it's dirty and I've got to move away, but the fact being, still the vast majority of friends and family are not Bitcoiners. All the Bitcoiners get hold of me on Telegram or Signal, but a lot of family people, they're still on WhatsApp, and getting rid of that is a problem. So that's generally what my phone gets used for.
Beautiful. Okay, so this can do all of that and more. One, you can see Telegram's already installed out of the box, right? And there's a Telegram FOSS version, which actually has more channels that aren't censored. Because the official version from the App Store and Google, they have their own censor list that they get a Telegram to take off, right? So this is more freedom for you. Then you mentioned WhatsApp. I totally see where you're coming from. None of us want to use WhatsApp. But in some countries, you can't get around without WhatsApp, especially Latin American companies. They use it way too much. And so you can get that if you want to. And more than that, what you can do is you can create an encrypted sandbox on this phone. It's like you can have a jail inside your phone and you can put WhatsApp in there and it can't access the rest of your phone. So there are techniques where you can separate out your multiple use cases on this phone And there's multiple ways to do that too. So if you're interested, you go to learn.abovephone.com and you can check all that stuff out. Twitter, I am sure, works on this phone. One thing I'm interested in, and I'm going to look this up, is that there's an alternative Twitter client that allows you to post. I haven't found one yet, but I just wouldn't trust the default Twitter app. I wouldn't trust it. So I know there are different apps like Knitter which allow you to look at posts and profiles, but not one that lets you post. So that's something I want to research. Lastly, with Signal, I'll just mention this about Signal. I don't trust a piece of software that takes money from the government, and Signal is one of those. They got $2 million from the Open Tech Fund, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Media, which is, has been involved in programs like Radio Free Asia back, during the Red Scare. So you have to really think about where your software is coming from. So, and then there's stuff that Signals does, like sucking up all of your contacts and using that. It uses Google services on it by default. Like, how private can they really be when they're making choices like that? Now, there is another solution, and this is the last thing I really want to mention, is XMPP. XMPP is way closer to Bitcoin than Signal is, honestly. I think all Bitcoiners should be using XMPP. It's a 2-decade-old communications protocol that has end-to-end encrypted messaging, voice calling, video calling, and anyone can run a server themselves for XMPP. It's kind of like an email server. You join the email server, and the email server is responsible for federating or connecting you to other XMPP servers. So that is how the communication actually happens. And the one thing I appreciate with Signal, you have no idea what their backend code is doing. You really don't have any idea. With XMPP, you are in control of the server. You see that there's different server implementations. And so I've been a big promoter for XMPP, and it works really well. In fact, that's what our internet phone number solution that I was mentioning earlier does. You can literally use XMPP. Let me see if I can pull this up. So it's this app called Chiogram. You'll notice a few things here. You'll notice a phone number in my list of contacts. That's right. So I can communicate on this app, and it bridges out to the phone network. And I don't need to have a SIM card in my phone. I don't need to have EMF generated for my phone if I'm using an Ethernet adapter. So this is a way that we can transform our reliance on these old abusive phone systems, right? So again, that service is $5 a month. If you get above Privacy Suite, you get your first month free of this internet phone number service. And the best part is you can pay in Bitcoin all day. So yeah, enjoy. I hope those are some cool alternative solutions for you. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on to share all this.
Yeah, it's been great getting to look into it all and get a little bit more information on it. And I hope that people are going to reach out. And well, that's the thing. What's best to contact you if they're looking for a little bit of consultation on which model is going to best suit them or their needs? Can they just directly contact you, or just?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So we actually on our site, abovephone.com, you'll see a contact at the top of the page. We have a sales line, actually. You call that, goes directly to my phone and my team's phones, and we can answer your call. We can help you live on call like that. And then there's also an email sign up, and you can also schedule a conference for us in the future. And so I'm just going to list out a few URLs. So then one, there's abovephone.com. If you want to learn more about it, if you want to see the videos and see the hands-on stuff for the screen and whatnot, go to learn.abovephone.com. That's our official webinar site. And then we have an educational initiative too, which I didn't get into. But before I was into phones, I was teaching people how to detoxify their laptops from Bill Gates, right? Get out of there, Bill Gates. Get out of that laptop. Right. So that effort was called takebackourtech.org. So if you go there, there's a bunch of awesome guides to clean your laptop and different open source software. And so, yeah, definitely check all those out. And you can contact me through any of those sites.
Okay. So on the laptop, all right, what am I doing wrong? Just using an out-of-the-box MacBook.
Yeah. So, I mean, so if you have a MacBook that's before 2018, you can actually get Linux installed in your MacBook. And it's the same concept, right? It starts from like the core software. So maybe in the future, I'm actually working on a laptop product that, again, is just like the phone, has everything set up out of the box. Love to share that with you when that's ready. But yeah, it's just switching to Linux. So just really quickly, my recommendations are KDE Neon is a really good operating system. And then there's also Endeavor OS, which is an Arch-based operating system. This doesn't mean much right now, guys. The more important thing is that you look into Linux, you look into the other distributions, and it's the same thing. The software is free. There's not annoying updates like Windows comes in. It's like, I need to update your computer. It's like, I paid for this thing. Who owns this thing actually? So there's nothing like that. There's no spying going on the operating system. And you have way more software that is free for you to use. So again, it's the inversion. Come to the light side, my friends.
Yeah, exactly. And now you made me think about all of those updates that happen on your computer, and people love them, right? They get addicted to them. I hate the freaking updates because I know it's
people
change.
Love the updates.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, did you download like Mac OS X?
Okay.
What we even up to now?
Yeah.
I don't know. You can do this and you can do that, and there's this new shortcut. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like this just changed the whole flow of my computer, and this is just like a pain in my balls. But if you don't update it by a certain point, then it's not going to be able to run some of the stuff that you're using. But not only that, you've made me think again, if they can just update the operating system, is that then going to be emitting more EMF going forward? Is this just a gradual creep?
I think it's definitely, I think what you pointed out is something I'm gonna research and try and like pinpoint all the variables. Because I mean, that would be scary if that was the case. And, you know, there could be, if we had change logs, we could actually see, anything relating to the radio, updated the radio firmware to make it more optimized or make it more powerful. That'd be what to watch out for. And it's possible, right? They can do whatever they want to the operating system. It's their proprietary code. You're not able to see anything on the code. And that's what really comes down to, friends. It's just transparency. So choose open source and you'll be much better off. So I look forward to hooking you up with a laptop and the phone and in good time.
I imagine you going down that rabbit hole and then pinpointing that EMF has increased after every single update. I mean, that can only point to one answer of why they're doing that. And everyone's going to put their tinfoil hats on and scream conspiracy theorists and whatever else. But I mean, come on, it wouldn't be more obvious.
Yeah, you know what, man? I think it's one of those things that they have a tight control over. And in our side, we just need to come up with more solutions. So that's what I'm doing, finding the best protective clothing, the wires, even pendants. Now, like first I thought all pendants were kind of just scams, but I'm seeing some good research now that is showing that there are pendants that can attenuate the effects of EMF. So that's what, they turn up the heat. We just need to up our force fields even higher.
What about the watches, man, that people are walking around with on their wrists?
You talking about the smartwatches?
Yeah.
So that's like another Bluetooth, technology. Is definitely not good. Going back and forth between that. Just ditch all of that. It's worth it, And it maybe you don't want to throw it away. Just do an A/B test. Go all wired. Turn your router off 24/7. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you have people in the house that don't let you do that. But if you can do that, try it and see if your sleep improves. I'm betting it will. I'll bet you 100 sats.
Yeah, you got me worried, man. We've got the kids at home all day because they're doing a self-directed education, and then that means they're online a lot, interacting with facilitators and other kids all around the world. Far too close to these things. I'm going to have to get those wires and continue this journey. All right, brother.
Well, man, you know my email. I'm here to help. It's not as bad as it's just these things, man. Like you've already figured out the important stuff, like keeping it out of your rooms at night is the biggest thing. Wiring it up, it's the best. You're gonna be just fine.
All right, cool. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you for coming on and everything that you've done for the Bitcoin community and the freedom community and the privacy community. You're clearly doing Satoshi's work out there, as well as the privacy people they're going to be orange pilled, hopefully in a big way. And like we talked about earlier in the show, bringing these disparate groups together who all have a common goal and just using each other's tools and learning about them is the best thing that we can do. And pods like this are going to, go a long way as to achieving that goal. So thanks for coming on.
My honor and pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Daniel. Really, really appreciate it.
Take care.
Peace.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. And for those of you that have been watching and listening to the Once Bitten podcast for quite a while now, thank you again for everything that you do to help spread the message. Like, subscribe, leaving comments, whatever it is. I really appreciate it. As well as I appreciate also every single guest that gives up the time to come on and talk about these topics, talk about Bitcoin, talk about what they're working on, talk about the projects that they're involved in, where they see the future, what their Bitcoin rabbit hole story was. All of this goes such a long way in helping new people coming into the space understand what is going on here. And there are companies out there that can help you too. And some companies that have aligned themselves with this show, I would like to give a shout out to all of them. Swan Bitcoin are based in the US. For those of you living in the USA, you can start stacking sats with Swan Bitcoin. Hit the link in the show notes. That will unlock a free $10 for you. You can set up your dollar cost average plan, and you can also get some white glove service, full on financial advice from the team over at Swan. In Europe, we have a company called Relay. Here they are, relai.ch/bitten is going to help you save on commissions when you download the app and start stacking Bitcoin. You can stack up to 1,000 Swiss equivalent per day without giving up any of your personal details. So go and check that out. And they also have, like Swan, they have the private arm where Benjamin is going to talk you through how to set up Bitcoin for your business, or if you're a high net worth individual, or if you're just somebody that is looking for extra information about Bitcoin. Both companies offer great educational resources as well. Hodl Shuttle are a global peer-to-peer trading and lending platform. So you can just hit the link in the show notes, set up your account, use that link, and you're going to save on commissions when you are trading with your peers globally. Now, Wasabi Wallet, what is this? What is important about this part of your Bitcoin journey? As you learn about Bitcoin, you might learn a little bit more about privacy and how to keep yourself private and remove your identity from some of the Bitcoin that you have been stacking. Now, for some of you, that might not be important, but it's still worth you going down a rabbit hole and checking out the reason that some people are removing their identity from their Bitcoin. Now, Wasabi Wallet is very easy to use. You just go to wasabiwallet.io, you download the software, you create your first wallet, you write down your words, you keep them very safe somewhere. And every time you withdraw Bitcoin from one of the apps or exchanges that you've been using, it's going to perform a coin join and break that connection between you and your personal identity that you gave up to make one of these accounts. So worth checking out, wasabiwallet.io. Mempool.space. What is that? Well, that is a place for you to go and learn about what's going on in the blockchain, the time chain. Call it what you like, and go and check out the mempool. Go and check out what's going on in Bitcoin. What are the sats per byte to make these transactions? Where does some of your Bitcoin live? Up your education as well, because it's an excellent way to visualize the Bitcoin blockchain and help other people understand what's going on as well. Finally, cold storage. You have to take cold storage. Bitbox O2 is a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet. You can hit the link in the show notes, and you can use the code BITTEN at checkout to save yourself 5%. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that you are in complete control of your Bitcoin. When you withdraw them from the apps or exchanges, then let's say you put them through a coin join, and then the last thing you would want to do is take them offline. And the Bitbox is a great piece of equipment to do that. Go check out the link in the show notes. Understand more about what a hardware wallet is, what cold storage is, and why it's important for you to make sure you own your Bitcoin. Do not leave them on an exchange or an app. Finally, meeting plebs. Orange Pill app. Go download it. It's going to cost you $4 per month. It's available on the app stores, and you can start finding events and Bitcoiners that live around your area or in the area in which you are traveling. Conferences. Most conferences support the show. And that means if you use the code BITTEN at checkout for any one of these conferences, you'll likely get a 10% discount. These can range from the Free Cities Foundation, who put on a conference each October called Liberty in Our Lifetime. Bitcoin Amsterdam, put on by Bitcoin Magazine. They're also putting on, well, they have put on Bitcoin Miami, but they're moving that to Tennessee this year. Bitcoin Atlantis, which is going to be in Madeira. Plan B in Lugano, just to name a few. These places, BTC Prague, of course, one of the biggest, greatest events this year in June. All of these events are friends of the show, and they offer discount to the listeners. So use the code BITTEN at checkout for any of the conferences that you're looking to go to see if you get a 10% discount. If you do not, make sure you DM me and reach out, and I will see what I can do. Education is the last piece of this. Please keep upskilling. You can get books now from bitcoinbook.shop. You don't need to go to Amazon anymore. They have all of the books available for you in many different languages and are on a mission to translate as many Bitcoin or Bitcoin-related books that they can into as many different languages. They need support. So every time you shop there, if you use Bitcoin via the Lightning Network, you'll save 10%. If you use the code BITTEN, you'll save 10%. So go and get some books, gift them to your friends and family. Let's up everybody's education around Bitcoin. Finally, if you get a chance to leave a comment underneath, just leave a comment. Bitcoin is, and then one word. What does it mean to you? So in the comments, just 3 words. Bitcoin is hope. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Appreciate everything you're doing. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next show.